Welcome to Cow Talks. This is Marcelo Wallau, forage extension specialist with the University of Florida. And this is our podcast, where we dive into the main topics affecting livestock and forage production in the southeastern United States. Join us in this journey as we tackle the main issues affecting our producers and the sustainability of our production systems. Welcome back to Cow Bites, the technical segment of the Cow Talks podcast. I'm Marcelo Wallau, forage extension specialist with the University of Florida, and your host. Today, I want to talk a little bit about the spring green up of our warm season perennial pastures. Warm temperatures, we got a little bit of rain finally, and we see some grass starting to grow in the fields. We get very excited. It's almost time to transition our animals from our cool season forages, which struggle a lot this year, into warm season perennial pasture, right? Well, let's hold on just a little bit. We're not quite there yet. And we need to be very cautious in this transition because the management now is going to affect the productivity of that pasture throughout the year and also the persistence of that pasture. What is happening now? Right now, the warm season perennial forages, namely Bahia grass, Bermuda grass, limpo grass, and even our perennial peanut are coming out of dormancy. They're doing that on the carbohydrate reserves that they had stored in the previous season. So they're on low batteries. They're not self-sustained yet. They are not able to generate as much energy as they need to growth from the sun, from photosynthesis at this point. Well, because they don't have a lot of leaves. If we graze those pastures right now, we set those plants back. We force the plants to spend a lot more energy, a lot more of those limited resources, and it's going to delay recovery, weakens the stand, and set up for more weeds and lower season-long production. That's why it's very important to consider this management right now. Just as a ballpark, our spring Bahia grass is probably only growing about 5 to 10 pounds of dry matter per acre per day. In the summer, when it's fertilized, we're going to see probably 40 to 60 pounds of dry matter per day, so a lot more growth. Considering a typical cow of 1,100 pounds, it's going to need about 22 to 27 pounds of dry matter per day. And even if we aim to harvest only half of that spring growth, that's what we recommend, never go more than half of that growth, we basically need 5 to 10 acres to sustain just one cow. So it is not enough, versus almost 1 cow per acre at the peak of the summer. That's why turning them out in our pastures right now doesn't pencil in. We really need to wait until that canopy is closed, until we have at least 6 to 8 inches of forage in that Bahia grass. That means 1,400 pounds of dry matter to the acre to be able to start raising. So what we'd recommend, first of all, use a dry lot. A sacrifice area is much better to sacrifice only a part of our pasture than the whole pasture. We need to confine the animals in a section of our pasture and protect the rest. It's cheaper now to feed a little more hay than to lose that summer production or even in the long term, stand persistence. Fertilize smart now is key. Spring fertilization sets the pace for the whole year. If we can fertilize early, we are going to have earlier productivity and more production throughout the season. But there's a caveat here. Remember that April and May are normally the driest months, and we are in a historical drought in Florida. So we need to be conscious about when fertilizing to have moisture. Right now, we have a cold front moving through the state, and hopefully we'll drop some very needed rain in our pastures. But we need to be cautious because if we don't have enough rain to get those forages growing, our fertilizer could be wasted. We're not using it efficiently. Irrigation helps. Of course, farmers that have ability to irrigate their pastures can capitalize on early growth, especially combined with that nitrogen fertilization. One of the things I love about mixing forages and legumes is that those legumes add nitrogen to the system. In systems that we have, for example, perennial peanut and Bahia grass, that perennial peanut over time adds a lot of nitrogen to the system. And those pastures that we have the legume are going to start growing earlier in the spring compared to those that don't have that nitrogen supply. Also, keep in mind that pastures that got overseeded in the winter with cool season annual forages, normally we're overseeding ryegrass, they are going to be delayed. And now is the time to start cleaning up some of those pastures. That means removing that cool season forage and giving space for the green up of the Bermuda or Bahia grass. This is essential not to sacrifice the summer productivity of those pastures. And also keep an eye on weed control. Another thing that really matters in terms of spring regrowth, and it's important especially when we're planting new pastures, is the choice of variety. We have many different varieties of Bermuda grass, of Bahia grass, and even of limpo grass and perennial peanut. Some varieties have a longer growing season than others. For example, when we think about Bahia grass and we divide most of the Bahia grasses in either Pensacola Bahia grasses or Pensacola types and Argentine types. The Argentine types are normally going to be more concentrated growth in the summer. There's going to be later growth in the spring versus Pensacola. But even within Pensacola, UF Riata and Tiff Creek varieties, cultivars for example, are going to be earlier than other varieties like Tifton 9 or common Pensacola. The bottom line here is hold on. Don't put those pastures yet to use. Don't turn the cows loose in those greening pastures quite yet. Make sure the pastures are well recovered, they are close canopy, and they're close to at least 6 to 8 inches before on Bahia grass. And remember, don't graze more than half. Utilization efficiency does not equate production efficiency. The more we graze out of those pastures does not mean the more they will produce and the more animal performance we can take. It needs to be a balance between what we remove and what we leave to those pastures. That's why we always talk about take half and leave half. If you want to learn more about this topic, take a look in the description of this podcast, and I'm going to leave a link for an article we wrote a couple of years back to exemplify what's happening during the spring growth and the effect of nitrogen fertilization earlier in the season and the different strategies on the seasonal and total productivity of your pastures. I hope you enjoyed this podcast. And please get in touch with us. We would love to hear your feedback, to learn how you're using this information, and also to learn more about interests in other topics that we can bring to you here. See you next time in another Cow Bites episode of the Cow Talks podcast. This podcast was brought to you by the University of Florida Forage team with technical support from the University of Florida College of Agriculture and Life Sciences, Faculty Instructional Resource and Support Team. This episode was produced by Marcelo Wallau, Olivia Mowley, and Ashley Kanabrowski. We hope you have enjoyed this podcast. If you have any comments or thoughts to share with us, please reach out to us through our email, forages@ifas.ufl.edu, and find us on our social media, uf.forages on Instagram, UF Forage Team on Facebook, or UF IFAS Forages on YouTube. We hope to see you in our next episode.